Great skills again by him. Oh, marvellous goal by Logan.
Welcome to the Rangers Journey.
Yes, hello, a very warm welcome to tonight's Ibrox Channel podcast live on the Rangers Journal. I hope you're all doing well and I hope you've opened the second door on your advent calendar today. I am joined with the one and only Doug, the man, the myth, the legend, the guy that knows just about any stat you need to know about Rangers. This is the man that'll always be in the comments with that stat instantly. This is the guy you want on your pub quiz team. How you doing, Doug?
I'm not too bad, thanks. Not too bad, thanks. I'm just really quick with Google. Is a better thing. If I have to actually remember something, I'm no good to you. But
this
yeah.
is where you have to lie and say, "Oh yeah, I'm just amazing." That's exactly what it is. So thank you.
Oh, I'm still amazing. Yeah. It's just amazing at typing.
Did you open the second door in your advent calendar today? Have you got an advent calendar?
I do this year. I don't normally, but one of my friends bought me a Brewdog advent calendar, so I get a wee tinny every morning.
Wow, if
you're
not an
which for public
purpose,
which for public purposes I then put down and do not consume until after work, I should say. But,
of course, yes.
It goes in the fridge, and it's cool by the end of the day.
That's brilliant. I was going to say nothing. If somebody's just having a look at this podcast at what life is like in Scotland, yes, we do have alcohol advent calendars. Yeah, that does sum things up, really, doesn't it? Before we start tonight's pod, don't forget we are proudly sponsored by the guys over at the famous Bluebells Bar, Puerto del Carmen in glorious Lanzarote. So if you're over in Lanzarote, you'll definitely find a warm welcome at the only Rangers bar in Puerto del Carmen. Bluebells is family friendly, so you can eat, drink, chill or party, and you can bring the little ones along as well. And yes, they do show every Rangers game live, which is what you need when you're on holiday to get your Rangers fix. So there's nothing better than sitting overlooking the ocean with a beer or a cocktail in their sun-kissed balcony, or grabbing a bit of shade if it is too hot. So when in Lanzarote, do pop in and say hi to the wonderful guys at the Bluebell. So there's me talking about alcohol on an advent calendar, and then we're talking about more booze there. I think Rangers are driving us to booze these days with their sort of performances. But yeah. Also, don't forget, guys, the Rangers Journal does have an Etsy store. Now, I am wearing, I don't know if you can see it, a lovely Rangers Journal hoodie. It is available on the Etsy store. You can maybe see the back there. There is a Rangers Journal logo on there as well, so do have a look at the Etsy page. There's lots of great t-shirts and stuff on there. Absolutely fantastic. So, got a few bits to talk about this evening. We'll just go over a little bit into the game on Sunday, which was an absolute drab fest, so we're not going to really dwell too much on the game. We're going to be talking about the revelation that Nico Raskin had a longer contract than we actually thought. Oliver Antman, of course, out for 8 weeks. Going to be talking about that as well. We're going to be talking about the vital fixtures that we've got coming up between now and basically between now and January, and of course the ones we've got coming up after then as well. It's hard to kind of pick what a key match is at the minute, because I think every game is key for us at the minute because of just the way things are. Every point is needed, and of course we'll be talking about maybe a little bit of AFCON and how that might affect us with players going out there. So I hope everyone's doing well. Somebody's put Andrew's mic sound a bit low. Let me see if there is an issue here, because sometimes that happens. There we go.
Sorry guys, does that sound better? It's defaulted to my internal mic, as it does sometimes. There we go, that should sound a little bit better there. So sorry guys if that sounded absolutely pants. It shouldn't do now. So thank you for that, Brian. I'm glad somebody let me know. Good evening, Gordon, and good evening, Dale. We'll get to your comment a little bit later on as well. So let's start talking about that game at the weekend there, Doug. I know you've probably spoke about it already with, I believe you're on the post-match, if I remember right. It wasn't the best game. Falkirk didn't exactly sit in. They did come at us a little bit. Quite disappointed from our point of view. The first half we had 1 shot on target, 4 shots on target in the end. It was a game that was coming, wasn't it, Doug? I think after our last performance that we kind of just got away with a win, I think that game I think it was coming, wasn't it?
I kind of feel like I must have done something wrong in a previous life, because I was on the pre-match, the post-match, the match review last night, and then the members match review after that. So I've spent nothing but the last 48 hours talking about this game, and there's so little to discuss. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the big concern sort of now and moving forward in terms of this team is just that they've got these performances in them, because we know, or I think we've come to realise, that the quality of player that we've brought in is just not where it needs to be. There's, I think, I'm sure we'll talk about it a bit more maybe later, but there was some really illuminating comments I felt from Danny Rule in his press conference today in that respect. And I think, it's going to be a real just potentially a bit of a struggle in terms of just getting to that point in January where we can get some reinforcements in and hopefully just push the level and the quality a bit. Really very few players are showing much quality of any kind, and when they are, it's in fits and starts. It was a good start. Obviously, we all got a few wins in a row there, but I think, as I say, we're going to continue to come up against games like this, certainly until January potentially, because ultimately I think the players just aren't that good, and the ones that are that good are perhaps being dragged down by the rest because nobody's really putting in performances. We normally do our player of the month and goal of the month at the end of each month, and we did that show last night, but we only did a goal of the month because frankly we didn't think there was any player worth pulling out as player of the month, and we just didn't have the heart to give it to Jack Butland for a fourth month in a row. So that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, it really is where we are. It's interesting what you say there, because I think you've hit on a little bit of truth where you've got some decent players in the squad, but they're dragged down by what's going on around them. It's almost a bit sometimes like there's a virus, so to speak. And I'm not saying it is a virus. It's not a virus, but a metaphorical one where you just get some players that have got quality. Now, we looked at, the Rangers Journal did do a lot of analysis into a lot of the players that were being signed, and there were a lot of positive attributes. We saw that from Ant-Man, we saw that from Gassama, we heard lots of great things. We saw that Dija had some good metrics as well, and we're just seeing that things just aren't working. And is it just because everyone else isn't playing so well that it's kind of having an effect on others? Is it Russell Martin and his philosophy has just almost coached football out with these guys and they need a bit almost of a pre-season to kind of get going again? Or are these players just limited in this squad? Are these players limited? I feel that Danny Rule, I think, now knows the players that he might be able to trust and might not, and I think he's trusting a lot less than he probably should, and I think he's seen it all now, and I think he knows that the majority of this squad probably can't be his team going forward. Would you agree with that, Doug?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, in terms of sort of a couple of the points there, I'm a firm believer that if you being surrounded by good players helps you to increase your game. So if you play with better players, not only just in terms of learning from them, but confidence levels and all sorts. And the sort of analogy I've always used for that one was Dan Fletcher when he played for Man United versus when he plays for Scotland, or when he played for Scotland, I should say. If you're looking up and you've just picked up the ball maybe deep and you're looking at maybe playing a long ball into your striker, if you're hitting that 30, 40, 50-yard pass and you're hitting it to Dimitar Berbatov, you're hitting that pass because you're going, well, he's plucking that out of the air and probably smashing it in the top corner. With all the love in the world to him, if you're hitting that pass to Kenny Miller for Scotland, you're maybe going, oh, maybe I'll pass it over here to Ryan Jack because I don't know if Kenny's doing that. So, being surrounded by good players will change how you play, change, as I say, I think the things that you do and can raise your level. So, like you say, there are players in there that I do think can give us more and have shown us more. Raskin being a good example, but perhaps they're maybe just feeling a little bit downtrodden by some of the players around them. There's the there was really two really key. I think I'll just bring them in here because I think they're relevant. The two really key points that Danny Rule made, I felt, in his press conference. So the first and foremost was the really big one. I think a lot of people have gravitated to, which is he said that we need to have players that understand what it means to play for Rangers. So to me, that's a hit on some of these players. So he's saying we've got players that don't understand what it means to play for Rangers. Be that they don't understand that they need to raise themselves, that they must win every game, or they don't understand the pressure, whatever it might be. He's basically, by saying that, he's saying there are players in that locker room. I'm watching too much American football coverage. Changing room that don't understand. So that's the first and foremost. But he did talk about like the specifics of the game as well. He talked, he used the word aggressivity, I think it was. We'll say aggressiveness. I think that's definitely true. We're not aggressive enough. I made it as a joke, but the more I thought about it, the other day I made a joke in the group chat that the game against Falkirk was so boring we didn't even get a yellow card. The more I thought about that, I was like, no, that is kind of poor. Surely if you're chasing a game and you're having to harry and you've got a team that are setting up ahead of you, you'd probably have committed a foul or two at some point. So I think that's definitely true. Players are more aggressive. And then the other point he made that stuck out for me was talking about not just players he was talking about like the quickness of the game and playing quickly, but not in terms of just being able to run fast, but in terms of your actual mind, your footballing mind, being able to collect the ball, turn and play, and then play it quickly to someone that's around you. And I think one of the downsides that when you have the sort of transfer model that we have, and you're targeting younger players generally, that's one of the trade-offs that you're probably making, because most younger players, and obviously there are exceptions to all of these rules, but most younger players won't have developed that quickness yet, because that's one of the things that experience can bring you. Not just experience in terms of football, but experience within your own team. So a big thing, I can't remember if it was last night's pod or the members pod, we were talking about the squad, and I'd kind of touched on the idea that we've had so many players coming in and out season to season, because we're like going from rebuild to rebuild. We don't have like, I would struggle to name any combination of two players that we have that are like, well, those two players work really well together. So we were talking particularly about like central defenders. Like if you think of great winning teams and you're talking about their defense, they've normally got not just a good defense, but you'll have a really good combination of centre backs. I mean, like Rio and Vidic, and what was his name, Terry, and the other one that I forget the name of, but you get like loads of combinations. There's the two Italian guys, Chiellini and Buccini. Combinations of that. We don't have any of that in our team at all, I don't think. Partly because we're switching players in and out constantly. Partly because we keep buying players that are injured all the time, so can't play. And then because we're not winning, we're also changing things. So you don't get to build up those combinations, which is something that can help with that. So it sounds like, from those comments, he's going to go out and get what we've all been talking about that we're missing: some experience, some grit, and players that have good footballing brains and can speed our attack up. Gassama, I think, is a really good example of that frailty. There's sometimes where he'll get a wee burst, he'll go, he maybe gets past the player, or he's run into some space and the player starts to close him down. And there's sometimes that he stops and you can literally watch the cogs, or see the cogs turning in his head as he's trying to figure out what to do. And as I say, that comes from probably his inexperience in being a younger player. But we need players that those 2 seconds are the 2 seconds that you lose the ball, or that the defense gets back into their shape, or that your guy runs that extra foot and now he's offside. So that 2 seconds has to become a half second where you are running and then you're like, right, I'm whipping this ball in, or I'm going to cut in, or I'm going to take a shot. Or it's you're running, you're like, I know, I'm Mark Hateley and I'm bombing down this line against Leeds. I know Coisty is busting his gut and he'll be running towards that back post, so I'm just going to whip that around. Oh, look, whips it around, header, goal. That type of thing. And, those are the big things that we're missing. And I think it's really encouraging, having heard that today, that Danny Rose seems to be noticing those things, and hopefully is going to bring players in to address it.
I do agree, Doug, and you've hit on some very vital points there. The vital points that I've noticed that really makes the game break down, and that is the extra 1-2 seconds that players are taking because other players around them aren't on the same wavelength. Nobody's reading what's happening. Nobody's going, right, I'm going to get there, I'm going to overlap, I'm going to do this. And you're right, you've got creative players like Gassama that's having to stop cutting, stop again, look around, just that extra 1-2 many passes. We noticed that against Braga, where we're getting into the box, we were kind of pressing quite high, but they were breaking down so easily because we would take that 1-2 many touches, looking for somebody, nobody's there because we're not willing to. I'm not saying you should blindly play a ball into a bit of space, but the best teams do. The best teams know where somebody's going to be at any given moment when you've got the ball because this is what's worked on. Granted, we've only just kind of started to bring in other coaches for set pieces. We brought in Barry Fry, we brought in other people. So this is still a work in progress without a pre-season. So we have to look at some things and go, right, okay, there are changes happening, but it's quite difficult when you are playing twice a week. But as you touched on there, and some comments from Danny Rose press conference, it does seem clear that he's in a lot of dialogue with Andrew Kavanagh over getting the correct profile of player. And he keeps reiterating about the January transfer window that it has to be right. And he's saying that he's in conversation with Andrew nearly every 2 or 3 days at the minute. It seems like Andrew Kavanagh's becoming a little bit more hands-on. What did you make of the comments today? Kind of breaking some of them down. What were the kind of key ones for you? I know obviously you've mentioned a couple already, but are there any others at all?
Those are the main. I think those are the main ones I remember. Other than the injury updates still on, but yeah, no, I think those were the main ones for me. Like I say, I just find myself reflecting on those ones in particular, as I say, because I think they reflect a lot on not only what I've been seeing, and therefore, as I say, I was sitting there going, "Oh, right, good, he's seeing what I'm seeing," so hopefully that's going to address that. But then, as I say, that really big one about understanding what it is to play for Rangers, I was like, right, that's one of those ones that makes me go, that's going to affect the dressing room, or that reflects badly on the dressing room. I think managers every so often, they say things that really stick out. Like when Gio was manager, he made a comment after the first game against Ajax in the Champions League where he went, "You can't compete with this," and I immediately was like, it's just one of those things that I'm saying, right? That's going straight into the dressing room and telling them, "Oh well, you there's no point because you can't compete." You say it's difficult to compete. You should never say, even if it's true, because I mean, in many ways it is. But the season prior to that, we'd beaten a Dortmund team that had come out of the Champions League. We'd beaten a Leipzig team that had played Champions League year to year. So it's difficult. It's you don't see you can't, and I think that this line is, to me, hit in a very similar way but hopefully in the positive, where it's he's saying we need players that understand what it means to play for Rangers. So if I'm sitting there, hopefully I'm as a player questioning, going, all right, do I not understand? What am I missing? What am I not doing? And hopefully some of them it'll hit well, and they'll do that. They'll figure out, all right, I need to lift myself here. Maybe others it just going to go over their heads because they don't understand. Because I'm sure there's players that will have come to the club, and they hear all this waffle, or Rangers is special and Rangers and this and that, and they just go, "What? This is a football club. I'm just playing football." And they're the ones that will come and go because they won't have that extra percent that players that have that real drive and have that real respect for the history and everything. And so hopefully, as I say, that'll hit. I've noticed that someone in the comments has mentioned, just saw the name, like Bajrami. I get there's certain players I see that when I see them on the pitch, I feel like he's putting the effort in. Bajrami is someone that whenever I see him, most of the time I feel like he puts the effort in. I've seen people say the opposite, funnily enough. But certainly it's Falkirk. He was like the one player that I was looking at going, he's really trying to do something here. And so I hope that we see a little bit more of him. And also he's got external pressure or external motivations, because there's been constant, even though he's still getting a game, there's been constant chat about his position in his national team, and whether he's going to continue to play because he's not playing for Rangers. So that gives them a bit of external motivation. Obviously, with World Cup and things coming up, there'll be other players that applies to. So hopefully, as I say, these players are listening to what their manager is saying and hearing the fact that he's going, well, we need this, this, and this. And they're going, all right, well, if he's saying that's what we're missing, I'm going to try and bring that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you touched on some good points there. I think, making the comparison, obviously, when we heard the Giovanni Bronckhorst comments to that Ajax game, it really did feel at that point like it was the white flag being raised a little bit, and that's what it was kind of taken as. Whereas Danny Rose kind of articulated himself a little bit better in this. Don't get me wrong, it's not a post-match. This is obviously today's kind of presser he's been chatting in, so he's obviously had time to kind of word things, how he's going to say things, not like at the end of a post-match where you kind of, sometimes you wear your heart on your sleeve a little bit. But just some of the kind of comments that were in there, he did say, what I see, it's not just about positions. What's important for us as a group is which profiles we need from the skills, from the tools, from a specialist in some areas. I think this is crucial. It's crucial to prepare well for this window. Hopefully the market then gives us the opportunities to do what we want to do, and the earlier the better. So obviously work has started. We're probably a little bit behind in that respect because I think Thelwell, Purdy and kind of people that were in the background initially would have been prepping together all the stuff for January, because it does take a bit of time. It's not something that happens just in a couple of weeks. It's a little bit of planning to kind of look at players and do things like this. So it's not something that happens overnight. We're going to have to rush into it a little bit because it does sound like Dairou was not happy with that list that was presented to him for like potential targets. And I think Rule, I'm making an assumption here, but I felt Rule kind of thought a lot of these targets from the same vein as the players that we've got now in this team, where they have got some technical ability, but they just aren't that right fit for Rangers. They have that Rangers mentality. You might be okay at a mid-table championship club where you can win the odd games, draw the odd ones, and probably get promoted via the playoffs or so forth. But that's just not really acceptable at Rangers, really, is it? So obviously he spoke a bit about injuries. So we did see that, of course, we had a nice little period with no injuries, didn't we? But we just weren't playing good football. Now it's kind of the opposite now. Oliver Antman out allegedly for around 8 weeks. Now, he's not exactly set the heather alight. He started very well, extremely well in his first game. Thrown straight into it, Champions League qualifier, played phenomenally, laid a great ball on a plate for, I think it was Sama in that game. Since then has really kind of hit a brick wall, so to speak. He's not been playing well at all. It feels everything's really round out in games when he's playing. I think he's been nursing an injury. There was a comment here in the comments from Random Madness 1021 that was saying, hopefully the reason Antman's been so bad is because of that injury he's playing with. He's one of the players that excited me, Doug, when we were looking at him. Done fairly well with Finland. They're not exactly going through an amazing time though at the minute themselves, but he seemed to be a player that met a lot of metrics, and we thought, for once we might actually have 2 proper wingers nailed on. Could this be the issue, possibly, because the player just doesn't become bad, do they?
I mean, maybe. I think for me, there's 2 sort of things there. So one is this possibility, if he has been playing with a knock, then that can obviously affect you. Although, I mean, I feel like he's looked relatively okay in terms of he's still been quick and moving with the ball as I normally sort of saw him in the first sort of half of the season. I think the other big thing with him is potentially, I think he's struggling to adapt to the league. He obviously, like playing in the Eredivisie, you get a lot more space as you do sort of most of the continental leagues, and he's a player that does like to cut in with the ball, and I think when he's done it previously, he's cut in and had a bit of space to move or make a pass, whereas in Scotland he's cutting into these like banks of 4 and sort of running himself into dead ends. And something I touched on one of the other pods yesterday was that I think one of the things we need to be careful about when we are scouting is not just looking at the player in terms of their numbers and their statistics for the league, but then have a look at, okay, have they had situations where they've met, come up against teams as they will against in Scotland? So perhaps maybe in a European game, have they played a team that was a minnow in a qualifier or something, and they've had banks of 4? How did they perform in that game? And does he seem like he's a teachable player, a coachable player, so that if we need to, we can coach different ways of playing into him and things like that. Because one thing I think they should be encouraging him to do is maybe cut in a little less and try going out wider, being aware of when teams do come on us, where the spaces are, so that you can run into them. So, for example, particularly in Europe, but it'll happen in certain games when you're playing top half of the league. You know, if the team's coming on to you, the best example is the Czerny goal against Fenerbahce, when Fenerbahce, now albeit we'll probably very rarely see a team push that high up against us, other than maybe Celtic. But in that same kind of vein, when a team's coming at you, if we win the transition, you want your wingers ready to launch themselves and be pushing down those wings so that we can launch balls towards them, and they can make those type of runs that either end in them getting a shot on goal or end in them going out wide and potentially crossing the ball in. Because he did that against, was it Pleasant, I think, when he did get out and run and got to the byline, crossed it across, and Gassama scored the header into basically an open net. So the ball's past the goalkeeper at that point. So, you know, I think we need to see more of that kind of play from him, which we've not seen an awful lot of. So, yeah, I think there's a little bit of that in terms of, as I say, getting him coached up. And the sad thing about him being out, I mean, it's not, like you said, he's not been playing all that great. So you can kind of say it's not a huge hit to the team per se, although it is manpower down, which is, you know, again, if you're playing two games a week, most weeks you want to be able to utilize your squad. But it just means that, you know, he's out, and so that's less time able to work with him and coach him and things like that. And less opportunity for him to impress before January, potentially. So, you know, does come January, is Daniel going to be sitting there basically having kind of forgotten about him, and then therefore going, oh, I want to buy another right winger, and then you potentially find him out the squad, and that can be bad for us in terms of trading, because if he's not playing, because this is obviously a player that we've spent a few million on, and so if he's not going to be a player long term and you're going to be selling them, you still want him to be playing a little bit, hopefully, so that you sort of maintain his value.
Yeah. Well, don't forget, we do have somebody that can play in his position, the name of Oscar Cortez, who may come back in January. So yeah, if you're driven to the drink already, I might join you, Doug, in getting a Brewdog Advent calendar. The future's looking bright, isn't it? But speaking of alcohol, don't forget, this pod is proudly sponsored by Bluebells, the Bluebells bar in Puerto del Carmen, Lanzarote. If you're heading to Lanzarote, do head to the wonderful guys down there. Also, like and subscribe here at the Rangers Journal. If you're watching this on YouTube, do like and subscribe, to your notification icon on, and you will be notified anytime we go live. That does include the Ibrox channel as well, which is in its home here on the Rangers Journal Network. Now, Doug, we never really have a quiet day with Rangers, do we? So we obviously heard of Antman out for 8 weeks potentially, and we're starting to have a little bit of injury crisis. But there was definitely an interesting story which kind of broke via Joshua Barry from the Rangers Review, and Joshua Barry had the exclusive. Nico Raskin's contract is up at Rangers in the summer of 2028, not 2027. So he signed a 4.5 plus 1 year deal in January 2023. Now, I'm not sure exactly of how that works. I don't know if he's met certain metrics to trigger that extra year. I don't know how it works, because it's not exactly a 5.5 year deal. It's a 4.5 year plus 1 deal added on. So obviously 24-year-old currently, and it's not ending next summer, which was the big concern, I think, around a lot of Rangers fans. That's why we were hoping if a bid did come in, we would probably be wise to take it. Granted, at the start of the season, I think we were a bit torn with that, because we thought, you know what, he could be vital to this team. Sadly, he's not having the best of season like most of the people in this squad. So the signing from, let's not forget, Michael Beale brought him to the club via Ross Wilson at the time. Kind of not really utilised properly, I don't think, here. But that was a very interesting revelation today, because it wasn't really made known publicly, and even a lot of the players within the Rangers squad didn't know that, because you had that. I think that was an Instagram post from Raskin in the summer, and I think it was Leon Balogun that commented, "Sign the extension." So I don't know how this has all come about. It's only something I spotted in the news earlier when I was at work, and I thought it was absolutely strange. So, Doug, can you shed any light? How do you think this? Why has this been such a big secret?
Yeah, it's got a little bit of an air of that the magical release clause that appeared for Ickerman earlier in the season. But yes, just mentioned Michael Beale there. How good does Michael Beale's transfer window now look in comparison to this year? We've got Dessers, we've got Raskin, we got Sima. We bought Butland.
Bring him back.
Beale had the greatest transfer window ever in comparison. Anyway, not including the 4 or 5 other ones that were rubbish. But
we're driving everyone to drink tonight, aren't we, Doug?
Yeah, that's the goal. That's tonight's aim. If you haven't finished the pod with a drink, then we've not done our job. But yeah, I mean, yeah, like you say, just totally out of nowhere, bizarre in a way. But as I said, I was saying to you earlier, for me, this is a massive win for us, and perhaps actually explains why Rangers have been so kind of cool and calm about the sort of stuff that's been going on in the first half of the season and things. Because I think a lot of fans were getting really antsy, like when there was the big fallout with Martin and all these, and people were talking about, he'll just run down his contract and we're going to mess everything up. And maybe that explains why Rangers were actually seemed pretty chill about the whole thing, because they'll have known this. But yeah, as I say, for me, this is a massive win because I don't think we need to worry about having to sell him in January. We can now leave that to the summer. And as I say, hopefully he goes off to the World Cup and has a good World Cup, and that boosts his value. And we can look to sell him then. I do kind of feel like, the situation in many ways still hasn't changed. Ultimately, they're still coming to a point where either he's going to sign an extension and he's going to become the new. He's going to become the player that will build the team around. There's been a lot of talk about that. He could become the next captain. There's been a lot of talk about that. So he could become that player, or we need to look at selling him. And as I say, he's the next asset that we look to sell, because he's quite obviously the most sellable asset we have. So one of those two things will happen. I think probably more likely the latter. He obviously, one of the earliest quotes we got from him was talking about how much he wanted to play for Chelsea, and by virtue of that, I assume he'll want to play at the highest level he can. So he's played well for us at various points. He's had some really good games in Europe. So I think, as I say, if we can, I think he has a genuine affection for the club. I think he is a player that has come in, does understand, and does, as I say, has kind of gotten bitten by the virus a little bit, if you like. Maybe not as much as someone like Leon Balogun, who was just like head over heels, hook, line and sinker. But there's a definite fondness there. I think he's reacted well since the Martin fallout, and as well in terms of how he's spoken and things like that. For him, the main thing is just, can we get that form back? Because his form's been really middling. A lot of people are saying he's been rubbish. I don't think he's been rubbish, but he has been certainly under par. And if we can kind of rediscover that little bit of fire that he had at the end of last season, where he was getting goals. He has gotten a couple of goals this season, but just a little bit more of that and a little bit more of that fight in the middle. And again, hopefully, as I say, I keep signposting it, but unfortunately, I do think it's the truth that January is going to be that first chance for like a proper reset. We've got the manager in, that's step one, but I think when he gets in a couple of players, and as I say, hopefully the right type of players, that helps to kind of jolt the team a little bit and add a little bit of spark. And so we need him to be one of those players so that it's going to stand up between now and then, and put those performances in. But yeah, as I say, weird news, but good news for us.
Certainly was weird, but good. I'll definitely go with that. So it does seem like it was an extension. When that was signed, I have no idea, because it just doesn't seem to say much in many of the articles, unless there's one that I've missed. If anybody has heard, then do place it in there in the comments, and we'll kind of find out. There was a good comment earlier, actually, which it's a bit of a subliminal advert, so to speak. and it's about your scarf in the background. So basically, it literally just spells anger right now, which is absolutely perfect. So I was trying to find the comment, I put it back up. So maybe we're drinking too much now, but there we go. We're on the booze. There we go. No, it was perfect. Anger. It sums everything up really well. Oh, perfect. So yeah, it sounds like there was a 1-year extension option and he took it up when he did. Not too sure. Maybe it was in the summer, but normally there's a bit of fanfare, isn't there?
I'm quite interested by that point. Like I say, because they've said it's a 4.5 plus one. So like, is it an option that he took up, or was it an option that we had to trigger? Because obviously it's normally one or the other. Because you'd think if it had been he'd taken up, I would have expected an article, even if it was just a singular paragraph on the website that says, "Oh, Rangers are pleased to announce that Nicholas Raskin has taken up a 1-year extension that he option he had in his contract." You'd think, especially given how downtrodden things have been and over the season this year, you'd think that they'd grasp at any bit of good news, and I'm sure Rangers are well aware that he's one of the more popular players. So that makes me wonder if it was more of a we had an option that we could trigger. But obviously, until someone says, we've no idea. I could see him taking up the option. As I just said, I think he does like the club and enjoy playing for us. So I don't think he'd be against it. It could have been a thing where maybe it's probably, I would imagine his agent would have maybe advised against it, but maybe it was a thing of Rangers going, look, sign this, take on this extra thing, and we guarantee we'll sell you in the summer. We want you to go to the World Cup, have a great World Cup, boost your value, and we'll sell you at that point to a bigger league if someone comes in for you. Maybe they made a wee gentleman's handshake there. If you're his agent, you're probably saying to get that in writing, but that's it. It's just, like I say, it's weird. We just don't know the ins and outs, so it's hard to say. But the ultimate result is good, so the details kind of don't matter.
Yeah, no, definitely. It is a bit of a strange one. Random Madness here says he answered at the last press conference. He said he wouldn't leave Rangers the same way he left his last club. Yeah, obviously, kind of. He didn't exactly part ways with Liège in the nicest of ways. I think you can compare it a little bit to the Egerman situation. But I'll be honest with you, I don't always trust what you hear in press conferences. We did hear Steve Gerrard once say, "Do I look happy?" And then was down the road with me chasing him with a camera around the train station. So obviously you just don't know sometimes, and that's the world of football. But yeah, it'll be interesting.
Situations change.
Situations do change, and it will be interesting because, like you said there, it could even be something where he's met an automatic extension through certain metrics or something. Maybe there's all a financial incentive with that as well. Maybe he gets an instant pay rise with that. Who knows? I'm not the expert on contracts, but there we go. So yeah, that was a very interesting bit of news today. So we're now looking ahead to fixtures, and we have that lovely festive season coming up, where we have got a lot of places to go to. So obviously tomorrow night we are up in Dundee, which will probably be absolutely freezing for a 1945 kickoff against Dundee United. It's not always best playing Dundee United when you're not in the best of form, especially away and especially in a midweek game where it's probably going to be -1. Then Saturday we are away to Kilmarnock, again Rugby Park, not the place you want to really be going, and it's an 8 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. That is going to be an absolutely strange one. Of course, probably more local fan for that game, unless if anybody's travelling over from Northern Ireland, I've managed to get a hotel for the night. But it's probably quite difficult, that one. Then we got a Europa League game, which does feel like a bit of a dead rubber. Ferencváros, 5:45 kick-off in the evening on the 11th of December on Thursday. Then we got Rangers v Hibs Monday the 15th of December. Then Sunday the 21st of December, Hearts v Rangers at Tynecastle. Saturday 27th of December. It's always tended to be more local around Christmas time. Rangers at Motherwell at Ibrox. Last game of the year, Rangers at St Mirren at Ibrox. then, of course, we have the New Year Old Firm Derby a bit later this year, the January, due to the weekend at Celtic Park, 12:30 kickoff. So, Doug, I know you've done a cracking slide here of the kind of key fixtures, which you can see for all sides there. So, of DC Rangers there, Celtic in the middle, and Hearts at the end. We got a lot of hard games coming up, haven't we, Doug?
We do, and hard combinations as well, because I've kind of tried to group the matches for when they follow each other. So, I mean, you've got that quite frankly horrible block in January where we were playing Celtic and then Aberdeen twice. So, I mean, that's going to be a real slog, that one. Obviously, Aberdeen always up for that game, and really, tend to put the effort in. One is home, one is away. So we've got a mix of the two. The Old Firm is away as well. So 2 away matches out of the 3. So again, that makes it a tough one. It's going to be the blocks like that I think will be kind of key to the run-ins and how we end up doing. Celtic, obviously, they've got kind of blocks there: Hearts, Dundee United, and Aberdeen. And later in earlier next year, Hibs, ourselves, and Motherwell back to back. So I mean, key blocks for them. Hearts, I've got us and Hibs back to back in December, and then Hibs, ourselves, and Aberdeen back to back in February. So I think each team has got little key blocks there from sort of now till the split that are going to have a big impact. Obviously, the number one thing for us is just focus on our games, build up the points, drop as little points as possible. Which I say specifically because we will drop points at some point, no doubt. So it's just about trying to minimise that, and then obviously hoping that our opponents do the same, which again I think they will do. Obviously, we've already talked about this. It's not the best Celtic team in a while. And they may well have some teething problems when their new manager is getting his grips on the team and trying to install his way of playing. So, they might have some blips there. And then obviously, Hearts are having a great season. Well done to them. I'd be loving it if I was a Hearts fan right now, or at least up until the last 2 weeks or so. But they have kind of hit that point that we kind of mentioned, that it's not uncommon for teams to every so often pop up and have a stellar start to the season. Obviously, it happened to Aberdeen the other year, where they had an amazing start, winning game after game after game, and then they absolutely collapsed when they hit their roadblock. Hearts are struggling a little bit. I think it's two draws in a row now, I think. So they're hitting a period going into December, again playing Celtic, then playing ourselves, playing the Edinburgh Derby. So this is a big period for them to try, and if they want to obviously have realistic expectations of winning the league, then they need to come through this month rediscovering their winning form. So there's still, I think, a lot to play for, as much as it's difficult, and we are obviously without a doubt in the worst position. We also have we've got a game in hand on Hearts, which is a plus. With a game in hand on Motherwell, who are a space above us, albeit only on goal difference. So there's ways to, we're fourth right now, but win that game in hand, which I say that as if it's a given with this team, but if we can win that game in hand, that's putting us into third. And yeah, so I still think, see, if we can get through December, we've got to play both Edinburgh teams, which will be tough ones. Obviously, there's the wee asterisks against some of ours in Celtic games. Those are matches that follow our European matches, which again, obviously, that can take a toll. So I think that that Hibs game for me is the next big key game, because it does come after a European match, and Hibs obviously will be a difficult game. So if we can get through this December in a good position, stay within touch and distance, as much as it's fingertip touch and distance at the moment, and again getting to that point in January where we can bring in some new players and hopefully then go into January with a bit of a fresh impetus, then as I say, you never know what could happen if Hearts drop away, as it's statistically likely that they will, then you're back to your status quo, and it's just can we claw then back to whatever Celtic are. And like I say, Celtic are not the greatest team. I think they will drop points. They frustratingly do still have that knack of champions. We saw them the other weekend. They're going to get these games where they do struggle, but they get that last minute winner, and that's incredibly frustrating from our point of view. But as I say, it's just about hanging in there. It's the main thing right now. Minimizing games like Sundays and just keep clawing away, and hopefully, as I say, we can break it down. At the end of the day, realistically, if we finish this season second, I think that would be a good achievement considering how horrendously the season begun. There's still a domestic trophy to be won. So if we can finish second on an upward swing, win the Scottish Cup, I think that could be considered a pretty good end from where we started.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with that, Doug. There's a good analogy there, and we do have to admit that the team the other end of the city, they've got that muscle memory and they know how to win games. So even though there's an interim in there, Martin O'Neill, he's even said himself he doesn't have to say too much. They know how to do it. They've got a captain that's pushing them on. Not saying that Tapp doesn't do that. We've seen that a few times with him this season. He's been able to get some goals, but they just know how to do it, and it's ingrained, and it's not ingrained in us. And they've had an injury crisis. They've been playing second string players and been able to get results where we've been faltering. And I think it's something that we've been doing for far too long that's become a standard almost. Obviously, though, that's something that Will is looking to change. But looking at the games coming up between now and the end of December. So now I'm not going to include the Old Firm game because that you could argue is a little bit of a free hit. Not that it ever is a free hit, but it is at their place and it's going to be a difficult game. But between tomorrow night and the 30th of December, so the 27th of December, which is when we play, it is the 30th when we play St Mirren, sorry, I tell a lie. There's a possible 18 points up for grabs. Doug, how many points do you think we might be getting realistically at the minute with this team before the transfer window opens? Oh, you're on mute, Doug. I know you don't want to give us your answer, really. I know that it's probably too depressing, and we're going to hit the drink again before the pod's finished. But yeah,
that's my yellow card. Too busy looking at the games to flick back and click the button. If I'm looking at it, that's a 3. I could honestly only say I'm like confident about 9 of the points. I think we can beat Dundee United tomorrow. I think we can beat Kilmarnock, and I think we can beat St Mirren. But the 3 games, you've then got the 2 Edinburgh sides and Motherwell. Motherwell are having a great season right now. Obviously, as I just said, they're sitting just above us in the table. We've already lost to Hearts, and obviously they're having the season of their life at the moment. And then Hibs have been was one of our tougher games, although we have beaten them. So that's one thing. I kind of feel like Hibs games often either are kind of comfortable wins or absolute nightmares. So those 3 games, I can't say with any confidence right at this moment. I'd be confident about getting the 3 points from all of them. As I say, hopefully Hearts slide continues, in which case, we'll get the result there. The Hearts game is an away game as well, which obviously makes that one a little bit tougher. The St Mirren, Motherwell and Hibs are all at home, so that's positives. But I'm saying I'm confident confident-ish about 3 points against St Mirren. I was confident that we were going to get 3 points against Falkirk. So if St Mirren are watching that, they just need to go right. Like we'll just we'll pop over to Ibrox and just do the same. And I think St Mirren have a little bit more going on up front as well, which if Falkirk had, they might have made more of the match. So it's a sad state of affairs to be feeling so unconfident about all these games. As I say, in years gone by, I'd be saying, there'll be tough matches, but I'm confident we can get the victory. Whereas now I'm like, these are tough matches. I hope we can get the victory. But yeah, as you say, 12 points, and we need, realistically, as I say, we need to aim to be getting at least 10, and ideally all of them. So if you want to win the title, then you want to get them all. But as I say, to be realistic, I think we're probably, hopefully, probably going to get maybe 9 or 10.
See, I've gone for, out of 18 points, I've gone for 12. Looking at it, I'm trying to look at it logically. I think between the Dundee United game and the Kilmarnock game this week, I think we'll get 4 points out of those two games. I think at the minute, and it's bad to say that it's too much of an ask. It should never be too much of an ask to go to Dundee United, then go to Kilmarnock away and pick up 6 points. It should not be that difficult. I just feel it's not that achievable at the minute. When we haven't been playing so well, we did have a fairly decent couple of games under Rule when he managed to kind of get that new manager bounce and kind of organise them a little bit better. But some of them are falling into old habits a little bit. We've now got a bit of an injury crisis. Our main creative players, Mikey Moore, has been fantastic under Dan Rule, out injured. Obviously losing Antman, as much as he wasn't contributing, he's still an option that can come on if he's not playing from the bench. We are starting to get limited. Our striking options, which it does here, somebody put a great comment in, who is going to be scoring from our strikers? It's
Tavernier.
But that is the reality. It probably is going to be Tavernier. And that is the thing. You are probably going to find we're not going to be scoring many goals. I think probably an easier question to look at out of the games between now and then. How many goals are we going to be scoring? Because I just can't really see it. We haven't got goals really coming from midfield. We have been really very disjointed between the strike force and the creation behind them. Ofsky looks off the pace. Chubiti started some fairly okay hold-up play, but it's not the stuff in the box that we've seen that's good. I'm saying 12 points between now and the Old Firm, not including the Old Firm. 12 points out of 18, I reckon. I think they will drop points as well, but I don't think they'll drop as many. I think they might get draw around Christmas, and that's about it. I think they're going to have this new manager bounce. Yes, they are going for a manager that is somebody that is not too dissimilar to the kind of philosophy managers that we see, obviously highly regarded out in the ALS, but a new manager coming in, it's never easy mid-season. I think Mark Lee was very good at getting out of that team what they can kind of just play them to their strengths, but it won't last forever. What do you think? Do you think it's 12 a little bit? Do you think we will drop more points than them? I think that's realistic at the minute, isn't it?
Yeah, I've just realised I said get all 12 points and 9 or 10. What I meant to say was ideally we get all 18, but I think we'll get 10 to 12. I see. So I just sat there going, what did you just say? 18 points? I think we get more than half. And I'm going, I've messed that up. Yeah, I mean, in terms of we drop more points than them, just looking at what they've got.
I'll put this back up because it's a good slide. This is their key kind of games. So these are the ones that you're hoping that they will drop points.
Yeah. Those are those ones I think I'm probably the most realistic. I would say the upside to, or I suppose if you want to say there's an upside, both Hearts and Celtic have got to play each other twice. So you're guaranteed that someone's dropping points or both are dropping points. So there's a plus in that respect in terms of clawing it back. Again, if we've aspirations to win the title, then I suppose you want Hearts to drop them, but maybe do we want a mix of both of them dropping points? Probably. So that's a plus. And also, so if we can win our games, so we've got what have we got there? 1, 2, 3. So we've played both. We play Celtic and Hearts twice each before the split. So you've got 4 games there. So if they're dropping points against each other and we can win all of those games, which is incredibly unlikely, but if we do obviously do the best we can in that regard, you're going to make up some points there. Obviously, we'll all play each other post-split, so there'll be points to win there. As I said before, I do think that both of them, well, outside of playing each other where someone's guaranteed to drop points, I definitely think they will drop points at some point somewhere. Celtic have shown already that they have that same propensity we have to just turn up and be absolutely just rubbish, and just not just really devoid of ideas, or maybe more so in their set. They have those games. They've got it in them to have those games where they're still like dominating, but they're just, you're just not getting the goal. And they've shown that throughout the season in the points that they've dropped, and even at the weekend where annoyingly they got the winner in the last second. But on another day they won't, and they'll drop points. So there will be points dropped there. And then obviously again, if all goes to what generally happens, then Hearts will definitely drop points. January will be big for all three teams, I suppose. Obviously the Celtic fans have been out very vocally in terms of their board as well this season. It's kind of ironic when you sort of look at it. Both sides have really all been complaining about the exact same things. We just trying to kind of go about it in slightly different ways. And so you've got to expect that they'll probably buy a player or two in January as well to appease their fans and obviously to back their new manager. And then I don't really know. I don't know enough about Hearts' financial position to know where they are in terms of buying players, but I know that they've obviously got a bit of backing to them. So I would think that they potentially go out and get one or two. So
it sounds like they're due to the financial constraints. I do believe they're not allowed to splurge in January, but they have been looking at a couple of cheap options already that have allegedly surfaced. And again, the Jamestown analytics, it's really been gold for them, and it's something that's been gold throughout Tony Bloom's the clubs that he's been with, Brighton and stuff. So they're probably going to be able to gold, and it's something that we need to try and tap into if we can.
They'll get a free signing. That's it. They'll get a free signing from the Icelandic third division that comes in and scores 40 goals. So.
That's it. But you know what? It's been working. Just before we kind of go into some comments before we go, so obviously 18 points between now and the end of December is the maximum amount of points we can go for. I've went for, I think, go for 12. What are you going for, Doug? You going for about half that?
About 10. I would say about 10 or 12. I think, as I say, I think that Celtic Aberdeen.
Final answer. I'm gonna come back to this at some point.
I'll split the difference then and say 11.
Okay, I've locked that in now, Doug. So I'm going for 12. You're going for 11. Actually, I think okay. There we go. We'll revisit that in January and we'll have a look, and we'll see where we're at with that. I hope we're both wrong, and I hope it's 18.
Yeah,
but it's probably going to be more likely 4 points. I imagine between our injury crisis. There we go. I've just one Alan Austin here comment coming. I've heard Seema has been offered to Rangers, loan or sale, not getting games at Lawns. Have you heard anything about this, Doug? That'd be interesting.
I haven't, but get him in the door if they're offering. Get him straight in the door. As I say, he would totally change the dynamic of the front line. He would bring goals. He'd bring assists. He's physical. He's tall. I'd hoped that we were going to buy him, and I think that we potentially were going to, had we not been knocked out of the Champions League qualifiers that year, because the timing just looked to me like it all fit. He didn't put out his "by Rangers fans, I love playing for the club" message until just after we were put out. So I think they were going to do a Kent with him, and if we'd gotten into the Champions League, they'd have pushed the boat out and spent this sort of 6-7 million, I think it would have cost potentially to have gotten them. But obviously we didn't do that. We lost obviously in the games at Hampden, and so it wasn't to be. But yeah, as I say, he was a great player, and where we could be sitting right now if we had him as a permanent, or even last season if we'd had him as a permanent signing, Cherney on the other side as a loan. He's another one that's been talked about. We've spent 8 million on Chermiti. If only we'd spent that 8 million on Cherney. And some people talk about his wages. He's apparently on decent wages at Turkey, and that's why generally I think a lot of players go to Turkey, because you do get decent wages. but Turkey, Besiktas, sorry, didn't get him till later on in the transfer window. And if we got in there before him, then those wages wouldn't have been on offer potentially. So, we might still have been able to get him. I think he enjoyed his time here as well. So, who knows where we could have been if, even under Russell Martin, who knows where we could have been if we'd had those two sitting on the wings. But yeah, if Seema's on offer, absolutely, I'm 100% on board with that.
100% on board. I think we all would be, especially in getting at a good price. Obviously, looking at them fixtures that we looked there for the end of the year, obviously, AFCON starts. It's in Morocco, 21st of December to the 18th of January. So during them fixtures, it obviously affect a couple of them. The main players we're looking at losing, Nasser Dija, Burkina Faso, and obviously Mohamed Diande for the Ivory Coast. Are these going to be big losses, Doug? Do you feel at the minute, can we afford to lose them? Oh, sorry, Doug, you're on mute.
I think Diomande will probably be okay because we've got a lot of good cover or decent cover in centre mid kind of areas. I say a lot. We've got Connor Barron can come in. Maybe it gives Cameron a chance to play some games. So I think there's options there to cover him, and his performances can be up and down as well. So there is options there. Giga, however, as much as he's not, he may or may not be a first choice player by then, or if fans have their way, he won't be at the club by then anyway, because we'll have sent him back. He would be a miss just simply because we've got injuries in that area. If he's out, then you're looking at bringing in Enciala. So then you'd have Enciala and Fernandez potentially as the starting two if Sutter's still out. And that could be a worry just for the inexperience there. Fernandez is coming on to a game, and so, but it just adds that little extra bit of pressure in that regard. So, although they mentioned Fernandez there as well, I don't know if he's declared for a nation as of yet, because I know he qualifies for Nigeria, but he was born in England, I believe. So I don't know if he's on if he's a player that Nigeria are looking at or not. But certainly if him and Giga were to go, that would be a massive problem. So you'd presumably you'd be looking at Tav and Enciala then potentially as our centre back pairing, which again,
why not?
Could have been any worse, but
let's just go for it. Stick Liam Kelly in centre back. We might as well. It can't be any worse at the minute, can it?
just try to think. When is it exactly? It starts. Is it just middle of December?
21st of December. AFCON starts. It's been held in Morocco. It ends on the 18th of January.
Yeah, so it's still within that window of Suter and Cornelius being out then. So yeah, I mean, if we were to lose Fernandez and Giga, that would be a major problem. Because we'd have no centre backs basically. You'd be looking at your, as I say, reserve with Enciala, and then probably having to push Tav in. Unless I'm missing anyone, which I don't think I'm missing anyone, am I? So yeah, that would definitely be a bit of an issue. As I say, I think it's pretty unlikely Fernandez goes anywhere, but so yeah, Giga, there's a possibility that he goes. In fact, I think he probably does go. So yeah, the defense would be a problem. But again, if it's starting 21st of December, so that's only how many games do we actually have between then and when the January window then opens? So is it just the two? So you've got the Hearts games on the 21st of December, the Motherwell games on the 27th, St Mirren on the 30th. So yeah, so 3 games potentially. Well, yeah, he'd be there for Hibs and he'd fly straight after that, I'd imagine. So yeah, so you get 3 games there. So that could be a tough period. Maybe if, as I say, if we're organised, you bring someone in bang on the 1st, but then are you going to throw them into an away Old Firm game on the 3rd? So yeah, the defence is definitely the area that's concerned. That's of concern. I think we've enough to cover for Dio.
Yeah, I think we do with Mandy at the minute. Definitely agree there. Just before we wrap up, because we've just gone over the hour mark, good comment from Brian O'Rourke. Hope you're doing well, Brian. Rangers haven't played Aberdeen this season so far and won't until 2026. The January transfer window will be fascinating for everyone. Do you know what? I think it might be a bit of a blessing in disguise that we haven't played Aberdeen yet, because despite the fact that Aberdeen form at the start of the season was actually worse than ours, and we were down the bottom end of the table. Still have a feeling that they would have raised their game playing us, as they always do, to be fair. But yeah, the January signings might be this could be vital that one of them games did get moved due to the cup. I think it was, wasn't it? So yeah, that might have been a little blessing in disguise, and we'll see how things go when we get to January and into February, and hopefully we're still in with a shout of the title race. But that's just about it from us here at the Ibrox channel tonight. Don't forget, follow me on Twitter at the Ibrox channel. I post on there, and I post a couple of bits on TikTok, not much. Facebook, I'm going to start using it a bit more. So if Facebook's more your thing, I am going to start using that a bit more because I don't really utilise it enough.
That's a sign you're getting old.
Well. It is. I need to do a profile.
And you're like, I'm going to
use
Facebook again.
No, it's like you got your profile picture like this. You know, right up against the camera like that, and yeah, not smiling. You can't smile on a Facebook profile picture. It's like your passport photo, and it taken in your living room with your dog on your lap. Like that, yep. I will be utilising that a bit more as well. And don't forget the Rangers Journal. Follow them on Twitter and absolutely every platform available. They are everywhere, and they always post good stuff, especially from the scouting guys as well, where they're looking at players and potential backroom staff. And don't forget etsy.com/shop/the Rangers Journal. You can get a hoodie like this one. It is a lovely hoodie, says the Rangers Journal, and you can see maybe just on my back the Rangers Journal logo there. It is lovely, and they are available for purchase now, so do get over there. There's some great t-shirts as well. So before I go, I'd just like to say thank you to Doug. Doug, thank you, and enjoy your Brewdog beer. I think you're going to need a beer after this one, eh? So thanks for coming on, mate.
No bother, pleasure as always.
It is an absolute pleasure, and it is always good to see you, Doug, as always. And thanks to everyone at home. Thanks for all your comments. I couldn't get through them all tonight. I was starring some to kind of go back to, but we've just run out of time. We've had there's always something to speak about with Rangers, even when nothing's absolutely happening. But thank you all at home, and don't forget about our sponsors. If you are over in Lanzarote, head to the Bluebells Bar, Puerto del Carmen, in glorious Lanzarote. So if you're ever over there, head in there. It's family friendly. You can catch all the Rangers games, and there's nothing better than sitting overlooking the ocean in the nice heat with a cocktail or a beer and watching the Rangers. So every night is a Rangers Journal night. Take care, everyone, and don't forget all the pre-match and post-match build-up for tomorrow night. See you all later. Cheery, bye.
Every night is the Rangers Journal night.